Are you ready to throw away 6 months of salary because you hired the wrong person? Hey everybody, Ben Hodson here from JobNimbus with the Building Business channel. I've got Jeff here today and want to have a little deeper conversation. One of the things that everybody's really struggling with right now is finding the right people. And I want to talk a little bit about the cost of hiring the wrong person.
Right.
So there's probably a little bit here. Just let's start with finding that right person in terms of the marketing. Like there's so much noise. It's so hard to get people right now. How can you stand out from the rest of the group?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. In this market, even with COVID, it's still very challenging to hire talent for any positions. And I found that you have to have a real strategy around that. And it's kind of like a marketing strategy. Where are the people that I'm seeking? So when we go back to that last session where we talked about defining the spec, we find out where are people who match the parameters of that spec and where do I find them? And you have to be proactive about that and actually reach out. You can do some marketing advertisements, job postings, but you're not going to get everyone you want. You have to dig into that kind of demographic and find out ways to approach people they wouldn't normally hear about your positions.
So how do you, let's pick a demographic. You're trying to find salespeople, which is a very common turnover thing in contracting.
Yeah.
You're trying to find salespeople. Where are you going to find those people?
Yeah, so you might want to think about targeted advertising for areas where, for example, what do they look at online? Who are they connected to on LinkedIn? How do you go out and network with people
like
who have been
Facebook
successful in
and
that
stuff
role?
like that?
You can, Facebook, Instagram, other places
You've seen
to post
success with that.
positions. Yeah, and you think about, for example, going back to maybe a different type of position, people don't always realize you can go into a trade school and partner with them to build a certain curriculum based on the requirements you're looking for as a program. That way you generate candidates who build the skills you need, as well as have a network you can tap into when you need to refill those positions in the future.
So you find your local trade school and you can go to them and say, look, we're a local contractor. We would love to have a pipeline of your people because we know there's super quality coming out, and we will set up a class for them.
You can either talk to them about classes they already have and adjust the curriculum to put things in there that you think you need skill sets built in, or you can use it, help them develop a new class. What's great there is you always get the kind of in with who they think the best students are coming through that curriculum as well.
That's true.
So you get
the
some inside
scoop from the professors there,
which is always really helpful.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this is just trying to mitigate risk by more social proof, right? So the more people that tell you this person's good, the more likely that you're going to have less problems with them.
Yeah. And then you have to think of other ways to get the candidates to come in and talk to you that are different than maybe what someone else is doing. I actually talked yesterday with the CEO of a franchisee for several restaurants in the area. And he talked about how people are just bailing on the interviews, not even showing up. So you schedule an interview with a candidate and they just don't show up because they got another job offer. So what they've been doing is they've been giving you a $25 gift card to the restaurant for anyone that comes in for the interview, whether they get hired or not. Just to show up.
Wow.
So you have to think about ways to get people to come in and actually meet with you and have a conversation.
I've heard of stuff like that happening in contracting as well right now. All right. So you're targeting demographic, you're really zooming in on where those people are going to be that you're looking for. Now, what happens, you go through your hiring process that we've talked about in the past, and you get somebody in that's not the right person. How much is that going to cost you?
It can cost you a lot, and there's usually a couple ways to mitigate that. One is the person someone you can train and get them ready to be successful in the position? Are they willing, and can you train them? That's the first question you ask. And if they're not willing or not able to be trained in that position, you have to make a change. That change can cost you a lot of money. Because now you've gone through this whole hiring process, you've hired them, you've probably trained them a little bit, they're now on the job and you have to make a change. That costs you money every time that happens.
Is there some calculation that you guys use in your field that says, this is about, on average, how much a bad hire costs a company? Is it a percentage of salary?
It's usually about a half year's salary. Wow. It can cost you a lot. It depends on the skill level for the position. The more you train, the more money you spend. A
$30,000 employee could be 15 grand of just a bad decision right there.
Especially if they make mistakes on the job that cost you repair money and everything else.
And that's just the actual hard cost. Now you take the opportunity cost of not being able to accomplish things during that time, the productivity loss, and it can be probably 2 or 3 times that, I would think.
Absolutely. The business you can't take on because you don't have staff to do that. The overtime you're paying for everyone else to cover for that person while you backfill them and wait for another hire to come on board. There's real cost there.
Or have they made you look bad?
Or they made you look bad in front of a customer.
How much it cost you in terms of market.
They made a mistake. They caused damage in a job.
Yeah.
Things like that could be very compelling.
Okay, so we've got to mitigate this. This is a huge amount of money that we're going to lose, and time and cost and everything. So how do you mitigate that? How do you make sure that you're not having that bad hire come in?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the process we talked about. Clearly define the spec. What are you looking for? What types of experience and background? How do you build an interview process that helps you assess that qualification level and make sure they meet those qualifications? And then how do you check the references and background checks and everything to make sure you're getting the right person? The other thing I would say is the onboarding process is really key.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because it's one thing to hire the person, it's another thing to train them, right? How do you, what's a best practice around that?
For me, you talk to the person who's going to be assigned to manage them or mentor them. It could be a manager or a mentor, and you assign them with specific things they need to do to get that person on the job, up to speed and successful as fast as possible, using online training possibly, using on-the-job training, using other tools to make sure they get those skills as quickly as possible. Because we call it time to productivity, and the faster you can increase that, the more effective your business will become.
What's an average training time? Does it just completely vary by job?
It depends on the job. Like an entry-level customer success person might be 2 to 3 weeks, especially if they have a very intensive training program. Whereas a highly technical job may take up to 6 months to get them up to speed.
Okay, so then that kind of comes back to expectations. No matter how good the person is, if they don't have the right training or they don't have enough time to learn the material, they're not going to be the number one. So you've got to come in day one knowing what to expect and where.
Absolutely, and that's very helpful for a new employee coming on so they know what to accomplish. You could also attach some spiffs to that too. Say if you accomplish these things in your first 30, 60, 90 days, you either get a new hourly wage, you get a spiff, you get some other reward for doing that, so they're motivated and have a target to go after to get that.
I've seen spiffs, I've also seen negative reinforcement as well, like you can't get access to these promotions unless you do these things along the way.
So there's a bunch of different ways to incentivize people to get through that onboarding process effectively.
Okay, but it's as much on the employee as it is on the company, and it's a two-way street there.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you've got these people on and somebody's just not working out. It sucks. How long do you give them before you rip the Band-Aid and say, never mind, we got to start over here?
So once you know it's not going to work, and no matter what you do, it's not going to work, you should make that decision then.
Wow.
Because to drag it out, unless you need a warm body in that seat to help you deliver on a business, the risk becomes greater than the reward. And you have to make that trade-off.
But Jeff, it's really hard, and it hurts
It is
to
really
fire
hard to let people go. But the damage to your business can be very difficult to repair later if you drag it out for too long.
So have you ever met anybody that waited, or that fired anybody too soon?
No. Everyone I've ever talked to about this would say, I waited too long to make this decision. I knew it was the right decision. I just really didn't want to do this. But the reality is sometimes that's a very hard decision, but it doesn't help either one of you to drag that situation out for a long period of time. Having said that, it's always good to give people feedback early on and say, hey, it's not working out. Here's why. Here's what we expect differently from you. But if that doesn't improve and you know it's never going to improve, make the decision, help them on their way, get someone else in the role.
Yeah, by the way, I think that's really important. Don't ignore it. If things are not going well in the first week, get on top of it. Be very, very transparent. Like, this is not meeting my expectations. I was really excited about you, but this isn't good, and this is what I expect. I've actually seen a lot of people rise to the occasion and be great employees just with that 1 or 2 conversations of writing them. I've seen other people that didn't, and then we, of course, had to part ways.
Yeah, the last thing you want for someone to say is, I never knew I wasn't meeting the expectations.
Yeah.
That's not a good outcome either. So having that upfront conversation is really important.
Yeah, it's actually surprising the number of times, oh, I didn't even think about that. Thank you for that feedback. You know? Okay, so you've got to have a great hiring process. You've got to actually define that. We talked about that in another video. You've got to then have the reference checks, you get the person started, and then you got to have a great onboarding and training program to get them up to speed in their job.
Right.
And that's how you mitigate all this cost that you would
absolutely
have
will
otherwise.
help you. Won't be perfect every time, but it will help you avoid some of these pitfalls.
That's great. Okay, I'd love to hear stories if you want to comment below on people that you've hired. Maybe don't use names, but I'd love to hear about people you hired that didn't work out and why and what you learned from it. And secondarily, people who maybe were on the edge and then you had a really clear conversation with them and got them back, and what you said and how you did it. Comment below. We'd love to hear your ideas on that.